I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deshe du sangma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wala ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wala ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Transcends Awadangur Paje Pe Pal Dan Lama Dampa Namla Kapsuchio. Yedam Kil Gorgi La Sok Namla Kapsuchio. Sangye Tom Dende Namla Kapsuchio. Dampe cho namla kapsuchio. Pape ge dun namla kapsuchio. Pawo kadro cho kyong song me song yeshe gi chang dang dempa namla kapsuchio. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangju Ningpo Chi Ki Ba Sangye Namla Kapsu Chi Chodang Shangju Sampayi So Klang Deshin Kapsu Chi Jitar Nongi Deshegi Changshu Tugni Ki Pada Changshu Sampe La Pala De Dag Rimshin E Pata De Shindro La Pandandu Changshu Samni Ki Gishing Shindu ni la pala, Rimpa Shindu la pa ji o. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang so so ge dun la. Changshu bardu dagni kapsu chi. Dagi jinso ki pe sonam gi. Jola penshir sange ju pasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she de wadang de we gurdang dempar jorchi. Dog now dong de now gi gu dong dra wa jorchi. Dog now me pe de wadang mi dra wa jorchi. May ring chak dang ni dang dra wei dang nam la ne pa jorchi. Okay, well, thank you all again for coming tonight on this holiday evening. So what we've been talking about up till now has been the 5 poisons and the 5 antidotes to those poisons, the benefits, the 5 benefits, the 5 wisdoms that are associated with that, and the 5 colors and so on that all are associated with these different aspects of the Dharma teaching. And all this together helps us to be able to frame who we are as human beings and what the state of our mind is and how we can purify the state of our mind and so on. So unless you have a very direct question about something that we talked about, we'll move on to the next part. But if you missed those classes that are on YouTube, I suggest you go back because they are fundamental classes that are very important that many other things will be based upon. So it's good stuff to be able to understand and to make your own kind of notes and spreadsheet and get an understanding of these things. So one of the things that we were really focusing upon was the idea of the colors that are associated with these different wisdoms, these different modes of thought and so on. Because when we go into our meditation, when we go into contemplation, and we kind of get beyond our language, we get beyond our everyday conversation, we can think in very, very simple terms, and light is really, really very succinct at being able to connote a whole plethora of ideas and concepts and so on by just recognizing the light that comes to us in our meditations or generating that light. So understanding the light vibrations is very important. We find that in different practices that the lights can mean slightly different things. So it is a relative way of being able to understand, what your goal is for a particular practice. So all that plays into being mindful, understanding what it is that we're doing. So that's all very important aspects of what we do. So Tonight, we're going to do a practice that visualizes light, that visualizes fire. So one of the things that we've been doing in Buddhism 101 is introducing you to some meditative practice. So a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or so, we did a practice that was the watching the breath meditation practice. So if you missed that, it's on YouTube and you can go back and see that and practice that. But it is a great, very basic, very fundamental, very important practice that even the Buddha, when he attained enlightenment, it was the very practice that he used at that time to attain enlightenment. So it's very simple. It's something we always have with us, the tools of which we always have with us, which is just watching the breath. So we did that a couple of weeks ago. Tonight, we're going to do a purification practice. And this purification practice appears to us in our 101 books. If you go to, let me see here. In my book, it's page 23. It's called the Purification Practice. This is the Om, Ah, Hung purification practice. So I hope that everybody is sitting in a comfortable place. If you're in the meditative posture, that would be the best thing. If you're sitting on a cushion on the floor, would be the best thing. But if you're sitting on a chair, that's fine. And when you come in, I need everybody to mute their microphone so we don't create feedback and so on. If you're sitting on a chair, you want to sit on the edge of the chair. You don't want to sit with your back right on the chair unless you need that support. If you need that support, well, then by all means, do what you need to do. The goal is always to remain comfortable, but at the same time, firm. With our back straight is the most essential point of this meditation position. And when we sit on the cushion or we sit on the chair, one thing that we want to try and sit on are what we call our sit bones. Our sit bones are actually the lower part of our pelvis. And if we put our weight on those sit bones, rather than the fleshy part of our butts or our thighs, our legs won't have a tendency to fall asleep or to cramp up. So it's important to kind of move around a little bit, find those sit bones, and kind of make sure that your weight is really on those bones there. It really makes a big difference. So if you go to yoga classes and learn how to do yoga, that's one of the first things they teach you. So we sit with our back straight. Our hands can be at our navel, our left hand up, our right hand up like this, 4 inches below our navel. Our shoulders are back. It pulls our hands right into our abdomen. And then our head is down just a little bit. Our chin is tucked down just a little bit. And our eyes can be open or closed. In the beginning, it's good to close your eyes. But as we're doing this visualization, you might want to check in on me giving instructions or something. So you want to have a gaze. You don't want to have a stare. You don't want to be looking at something very strongly. You just want to be able to be relaxed with your eyesight. So either your eyes closed or just a gaze, or you just glance up and you see something that you want to see on the screen and then go back to the gaze or to your eyes closed. And the last thing is that you would want to keep your tongue on the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth when we're doing the meditation. And this keeps your mouth moist. We try to breathe in through both nostrils, and we're bringing the air down to our navel, where our hands are 4 inches below our navel, and we would hold the breath. And then we would breathe in deeply, expanding our bellies. And then when we exhale, we squeeze our bellies, which squeezes against the diaphragm, pushes against the lungs, and pushes that stale negative air out. And we hold that empty breath. And we breathe in again through both nostrils, expanding the belly, holding the breath. And then we exhale, squeezing our abdomen and then holding that breath and so on. And we're exhaling through our two nostrils. And if when you visualize the breath coming in, you're visualizing it as pure, you can visualize it as white light coming in, pure, wholesome light that's coming in and filling your body. We hold that breath. And then when we exhale, we're exhaling stale, negative, dark air that is going out. We're in our lungs, the air is being, exchanged, the fresh air for the stale air. So we're seeing that stale air going out. And we breathe in again, we see the white, pure air coming in and so on like that. So that's the watching the breath exercise, which is very, very good. And you should do that and do 20 cycles to get started. We're not going to do it tonight, but I just wanted to refresh your memories about this. And we, as I said, have an entire practice that we did several weeks ago that you can practice along with the video. This is a purification practice of Om Ah Hum. So what we are doing, we're purifying our body, our speech, and our mind. And we're using fire to do that. The purity of fire enabled to do this, to burn away any obstructions and any negativity in our body, speech, and mind. So we're going to use at our forehead is going to be a white Om. So if you look at the page 23 in your prayer books, you can see on the left-hand side there, you see a Sanskrit Tibetan Om, the syllable Om. And if it's difficult for you to visualize, just visualize the word Om in our English language. O-M is fine. But it's a white syllable. Whether you look at it in the Tibetan or you look at it in the English, it's colored white. And from it is coming this white fire that is coming from here. And this fire is purifying our body. Then from our throat is a red Ah. So you can look at the book again and see the red Ah. And if you prefer to just use the English AH, that's fine. But from our throat is coming this red Ah that is purifying our speech. And our speech is the function of our brain, of our intellectual brain that is communicating with all beings, with ourselves, and so on. So we're purifying that. And then from our heart is a blue Hum. So the Hum, you can see on the book, in the page there, is a little bit more of a complicated symbol, but you can use the word Hung, H-U-N-G, in its place. And so from that blue Hung is coming a single blue flame that is encompassing and enveloping our entire body in the single blue flame that purifies our mind, our heart center. So that's a brief introduction. So as we are breathing and we're reciting the mantra, because there is a mantra that we are reciting, a melody that we are reciting that is using our physical body in order to focus the energy of our physical body on this Om Ah Hum, this purification practice. Our brain is thinking about what this means in each one of these instances. And I'm going to be reading this to you, but if you're doing this by yourself, you would read this and then you would engage in each of these steps of the practice and so on. So when you are reciting, you're using your body, the breath, and so on to do that. But when you're also thinking about the meaning of it, why you're doing it. So then the heart is the space. We're using the space. We're creating space for ourselves in order that we may grow. So we're using our body, we're using our mind, or rather our speech, and we're using our mind, which is the space element. The space element is our mind. So we're using these elements, these basic elements of fire. We're using air. We're using our body. We're using our speech. We're using the space and so on to be able to visualize this purification. So we're using all these fundamental aspects of our human life, of life in this phenomenal nature. So through this space, we're making space so that we can change. If we are all crowded up and we have things that are all on top of us and enclosing us and so on, we don't have the space to change. So the fundamental quality of being a human being, the benefit of being a human being, is that we can change. All the different parts of human existence, when we talked about the 6 human realms, it is the human being that can change. The Deva realm can't change, the demigod realm can't change, the animal realm can't change, the hungry ghost realm can't change, the hell beings can't change, but the human beings can change. So we're trying to create this space. So that's an important factor. In doing so, we are creating a death. For us to change, there has to be a letting go. There has to be a death. And then with that death, then, on the other side of that comes a rebirth. And so this is what we're working for, is this rebirth. And how we are reborn is very important to be able to renew ourselves as a more complete human being, as a purified human being. So the death is our old being. As we come into this practice, then we go through this purification, and then there's this passing away of that old being, and then comes the rebirth of this new being who now is more purified than before. So this is a fundamental aspect of basically all the meditation practices that we do, is exactly like this. And we've gone through this many, many times. We've gone through this either through a practice meditation like we're doing right now, or that we've been born many times and that we have died many times. And we may or may not remember those, but we've gone through this process many times. And as we begin to do this, and in this lifetime now, we begin to have remembrances of that process. All this starts fitting together. We may not know our past lives or something. We may not know our future lives, but we begin to recognize the transpersonal. We begin to see how we've had these many lives, and maybe there were lives as an animal, maybe there were lives as an insect, maybe there were lives as other human beings, but we're connecting with them because all this is on this continuum. All this is on this vibration that we're all part of. And I use that word continuum. That's the Tantra. So it's a figurative word, maybe not literal, but it is something that we can identify with in our consciousness to be able to understand this process. Okay, so the more that we do this practice, the more sense it makes to you, the more experience you have with it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to transcend our ordinary conceptualization of things. And we're using light to help us to do that through these colors of fire, to be able to have the experience of purification. So that's what this is about. So everybody, if you're ready, we will, does anybody have any questions that you want to ask right now about anything I just said? Any of these instructions? Yes, Hatley, you have your hand up? Yes.
When, excuse me, when you described the white and the red light, you indicated the head and the throat.
Yes,
Are those flames supposed to encompass our whole body too, or just the blue flame encompasses our whole body?
follow the instructions. I will give you
Oh,
instructions.
okay, sorry.
That's okay. No, it's a good question. But the light is issuing forth from those specific locations. And then the blue light is issuing forth from our heart. But that is encompassing the whole body.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
No, that's quite all right. Okay. So now you can relax. And if you like, you can watch me. But I'm going to recite this to you so you don't need to do it. So first we visualize the white at the forehead, the red at your throat, and a blue hung at your heart. And we're going to recite the mantra hung. So there is a melody. It takes a little bit to practice that, to get used to that, but we're going to do it several times. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to do that. Do it out loud, please. And as loudly as you can, within reason. You don't want to shout it, but at the same time, it should be powerful. It should be with great devotion. If we just whisper it, it doesn't have the same effect. We want to set up the vibration in our body along with our vocal cords and our lungs and the atmosphere around us, that we're purifying all this around us. So don't be afraid that you're going to disturb somebody. I hope that you're in a place where you can do this with devotion and loudly. So now, as the first mala round, so we count this with the mala beads. So if you have your mala beads and you want to use your mala beads, it's perfectly fine. As the first mala round is recited, a white fire emanates from the and burns away all the physical obscurations, all the sickness and negative karma and bodily obscurations are consumed by this wisdom fire of the at our forehead. So a single white hot fire coming from there. It can be a flame or it can be a whole bunch of flame, but it's white hot, purifying our body. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. So it's a 9-syllable round that we're doing. And then we keep repeating that. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. So each bead on your mala beads is an Om Ahom. So you should be doing 9 beads with every cycle of the recitation. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. I want to remind you that white hot fire is coming from the forehead, from the Om, burning away all the negativity, all the obscurations of the body, all the sickness of the body being purified. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Take a deep breath, and hold it. Keep your back straight. Exhale. If at any time you need to move your legs or your arms or any part of your body is fine. Just keep your back straight. Come back to the meditation position. Next, during the recitation of the second mala round, a red fire emanates from the red ah at our throat and burns away all the obscurations, all the blockages, all the negative karma that was made through our speech. This red hot fire from our throat, purifying our speech. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahong, Om Ahong. Om Ahong, 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 Om Ahong. Om Ahong, 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 Om Ahong. Om Ahong, 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 Om Ahong. Om Ahong, 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 Om Ahong. Om Ahong, 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 Om Ahong. Om Ahong, 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 Om Ahong. Om Ahong. Take a deep breath and hold it. Exhale and hold it. Check your body. If you'd like to take a drink of water or something, go ahead. Now, the next third round, we visualize a blue fire emerging from the blue hung at our heart, enveloping the entire body in a single blue flame. So if you bring your arms up over your head and you bring your hands together, and you can visualize that your whole body is enveloped in this single blue flame that is burning away all the negative karma and all the obscurations of the mind are consumed and burned away as we recite Om Ahong. Om Ahong, 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 Om Ahong. Om Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Take a deep breath and hold it. Exhale and hold that. Relax and breathe normal. Now, during the fourth round of the Mala round, the three colored lights emanate from the three syllables, the white Om, the red Ah, and the blue Hum, and they radiate in all directions like a sphere, going in the 10 directions: east, south, west, north, southeast, northeast, northwest, northeast, and up and down like a sphere. These three lights radiating in all directions from our three special places: the forehead, the throat, and the heart. And these lights are fully purifying all the outer universe and freeing all sentient beings from suffering and their causes. So this light from your forehead, from your throat, from your heart is all coming together and going into the hearts and the forehead, the speech, and the throats and the hearts of all sentient beings. So you can visualize this in your neighborhood, in your small community, and then fanning out from there, going out to a wider place, and until you can come to looking at it with what's happening in the Western Hemisphere, what's happening in North America, South America, then going to Europe and to Asia and to Africa and to Australia and to Antarctica and to the Arctic, to all people and all nations, purifying all their suffering and its causes from your heart, from your throat, from your body. We recite the mantra. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, Om Ahum, Om Ahum, Om Ahum, Om Ahum. 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 Take a deep breath and hold it. Exhale and hold it. Check your body position. Keep your back straight. Breathe normal. Take a drink if you like. And now for the last mantra round is the dissolution, the dissolving. We visualize the white Om syllable at our forehead, dissolving into the red Ah at our throat, and the red Ah at our throat dissolving into the blue Hung at our heart. And that the Hung disappears slowly from the bottom up into the emptiness, into the shunyata. So then we will relax, rest the mind without any investigation or discrimination, and just be aware. Catch a glimpse into the nature of mind and meditate in that state. So we begin visualizing the dissolution of the white Om, the red Ah, the blue Hung. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Ahom, 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 Om Ahom. Om Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum. Keep your meditation position. Take a deep breath and hold it. Exhale and hold it. Just stay relaxed. Visualize the hung at your heart syllable, at your heart center, and the hung rising up from the bottom, disappearing as it goes, becoming invisible, slowly rising up, becoming invisible. And there's a single blue flame at the top of the knot of the blue flame at the top of the hung syllable. It's like a little flame flickering. Just focus the mind without any investigation, any discrimination. Just be aware and let the blue flame just become invisible, fading into the emptiness. Get a glimpse of the nature of the mind. Quiet, peaceful. And just remain in that state. Take a deep breath and hold it and raise your arms up over your head. Bring your hands together and look up between your hands at the ceiling and stretch your arms, stretch your back, stretch your neck, and hold your breath. And exhale, release your arms. Hold that empty breath. Breathe in and raise your arms again. Look up between your hands. Hold the breath. Stretch. Looking at the ceiling. Exhale, release your arms. Keep your back straight. Let your arms fall to your side. Hold the breath. Breathe in again. Hold the breath. Raise your arms up over your head. Look between your hands and stretch. Exhale. Release your arms. Hold your breath. Stay relaxed and breathe at your own pace. Open your eyes. Okay. Thank you all very much. Anybody like to comment on that meditation experience?
I thought that that was one of the visualizations that came to me the quickest. And I think it's because it was divided into the three and it was simple. Like another one, we've done Medicine Buddha enough times that that one comes to me easily, but this one was like immediate.
Yes. Very good. Thank you. Okay, well, this is something that you can practice as often as you like. It's in the book. You can read it and have more experience with it. You know, we've done this many, 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 many times, countless times. And it's always great. And it's something that, you know, we purify ourselves and then we're purifying others too. So it has a great benefit that way. Okay. Okay. Well, so I'd like to talk about a couple other things. One of the things that is important to note is enlightened activities. What are the enlightened activities? So as we get to know the Buddhas, as we get to know the deity yoga, we find that there's 4 enlightened basic activities that the Buddhas perform. And it teaches us that we do these things as well. The first one is pacification. The second one is enrichment or increasing. The third one is magnetizing or subjugation. And the fourth one is challenging or confronting. So the way in which these 4 work is that when we have negativities, we have obstructions, we have emotions that are overtaking us, the first thing that we try is pacification, to try and see the cause of what has been bothering us, the cause of the emotion, and maybe to do a short mantra maybe taking, counting to 10 or something like that to pacify, to try and logically reason away why we are having this problem, what this emotion is about, to pacify it, to just kind of tamp it down. And many times that works very well, just by being peaceful, just by taking a few minutes, reciting mantra Om Mani Padme Hum or whatever, or maybe doing this mantra Om Ah Hum like we just did, something like that may work. But sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes that the emotion is much stronger. So we need to be able to look at the cause of this much deeper, much stronger. So we have to enrich ourselves with teaching ourselves what the cause of this emotion is. We have to increase our power of concentration. We have to go deeper and looking at what the circumstances were, what the causes and conditions were, looking at the teachings that we've had, be able to apply the antidote, be more aware of what the different steps of what our practices are to help us to overcome this emotion that's really, that we become kind of obsessing with. So we logically go through an education, we go through an enriching, we go through an increasing of our energy, of our time, of our effort to be able to overcome this. So this is the second of the enlightened activities that the Buddhas are performing and that we are learning to perform ourselves, and then sometimes with others. If we become adept at being able to understand how this works by working on ourselves, maybe we can help other beings with this. But we need to be stable within it ourselves before we do something like that. But we can do that eventually. The third thing, if that doesn't work, and this emotion is really very powerful, really controlling us, we've had it for some time and it's really hard to overcome and so on, then maybe what we want to do is we want to magnetize it or subdue it. So what that means is by really engaging in deep practice and really trying to like harness this negativity, like throwing a net over it and pulling it in, or if we had the power to magnetize that negativity and bring it into ourselves and subdue it, and to be able to neutralize it through this power that we would have, that the Buddhas have, to be able to neutralize it through this intensity of being able to bring it in and be able to stabilize it and to be able to transform it from its strong negative power into a neutral power by using great compassion, by using great loving kindness in order to do this. So we call that magnetizing or subjugation. And the last one is much more powerful, but it requires much more effort on our part, because what it means is we have to challenge ourselves. We have to challenge, we have to confront ourselves, because the causes of this emotion may be really deep rooted, and we really got to dig down and we really got to pull it up. We really have to dedicate some time. We have to commit to some time. We have to commit to some practice. And maybe we can't do it right away. We have to do it over and over again for some period of time, day after day, to be able to get to the root of what this cause of this emotion is. So this challenging or this confrontation that we have to dig out to be able to do this. So sometimes it may seem that the roots of this emotion has become very suppressed, very deep rooted. And what we find as we progress along our meditative path, as we learn to do these things and so on, after some period of time, and I'm talking about months, it may be years of being a practitioner, things are still being purified. Things are still coming up. So things that may have happened to you, 5 or 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. Or maybe it's thoughts that come to you that you've witnessed through watching a film or watching television, watching the news, or you read about in a book or something like that, something that you have this transpersonal experience with that maybe you can't say, oh, I actually had this experience in myself, but it really touches you in a very deep way. And so these things rise up. And to be able to really fathom them out, to be able to understand that requires this kind of challenging, this kind of commitment, this kind of confrontation that we need to do to dig this up and to be able to really analyze it and to look at it. So you can see that all these things, are very strong, very powerful, and you wouldn't want to do them at this point in your progress. You want to do this with your teacher. You want to do this with the support of understanding that these emotions have these deep roots. But you want to be aware that there is this process that is available, the pacification, the enriching, the subjugation, and the confrontation or the challenging. These things. You want to know that these are there, and that this becomes motivation for us to want to really engage in the deity yoga, because this lineage that we are part of, this Buddhist lineage that we are part of, has this deity yoga, and the other lineages don't have it. And I'm talking about the Hinayana. The Hinayana is one of discipline, of just being able to more or less isolate yourself and concentrate on yourself. It's a selfish enlightenment. You're not worried about other beings and so on. And you're just trying to discipline yourself to not have these negativities and to discipline yourself away from doing this, just to isolate yourself from doing these things and from having to deal with the results of these things. And then the Mahayana, it's more of a devotional thing where you're looking to be able to help other beings, and you're relying on Avalokiteshvara, you're relying on the Buddha, the Bodhisattvas to help you to do this through devotion, through loving kindness, their loving kindness, and through their compassion, to be able to bestow upon you their grace and their skillful means to be able to help you to overcome whatever these difficulties are and so on. But we are of the Vajrayana. The Vajrayana is the wisdom tradition. And in this wisdom tradition, we are trying to transform ourselves into Buddha, to becoming the awakened one, to becoming enlightened ourselves and so on. So in order to do that, we need to be able to understand pacification, to understand enriching, to understand subduing and challenging, because those are the elements that we use through our deity yoga practices to be able to help us to do that. And different deities have their different approaches where they're very powerful in one or all of those, pacification and so on like that, maybe another one in the subduing, another one in the challenging and so on. So we begin to build an understanding of the mandala. The mandala is that palace that all this resides on. All this understanding. So we're understanding the Buddha's mandala, and we are creating our own mandala to become inseparable with that, because the Buddhas become our exemplars. They become our examples of what it is to purify ourselves. So this is motivation for us to engage in these practices. So learning the doctrine, learning these things that we teach here on 101, is the academics of it. But then putting it into the practice is the next very important step. And that's what we're trying to establish is a routine where we can do this on at least on the Saturdays twice a month, where we can be together at the in the shrine room or at the center and be able to do these practices together. And through the repetition of this and then taking it home and practicing these things at home will help to stabilize our awareness of how this all works and so on. More empowerments will be coming. Lamas will be coming to the center and so on, and there will be empowerments. In the meantime, we can learn what these mantras mean. We can learn what to recognize these deities and so on. We can learn that in 101. And so that when the empowerment comes, then we have a firmer, a richer ground on which to be able to understand those empowerments and to let those empowerments take root quicker within ourselves, so that we can move along and recognize these this true nature that we have, this Buddha nature that we have. Anybody have any questions or comments about anything that we've talked about tonight? Okay. Anytime something comes to mind, just speak up. Okay, so now I would like to talk a little bit about the dedication prayer that we recite at the climax of most of our practices on page 21 and 22. So we've gone through this a number of times, and I really haven't gone in any deep explanation of some of these more vague terms, esoteric terms and so on. So I think it would be important to be able to do that now. We have time for that now. So if you want to make notes in your book, is fine with me. If you have paper around that you can make your notes in, that's fine too. But to be able to understand, making these commitments to understand these things is very important, you know, and it will stabilize your practices much quicker than if you just rely on, oh, it comes in my ear and I'm going to remember it and so on. You know, we find that over time it fades. So we need to refresh ourselves over and over again. And the more that you can do this independently on your own, the stronger it becomes. If you have to come to the teacher and say, well, I know we talked about this 6 months ago, but I've forgotten what it is. Can you please tell me? You know, it's not helping you a whole lot if you have to ask the master like that over and over again. It's more important for you to be able to know how to research this. You know, they say that, you know, the definition of an intelligent person is that they know how to reference material, that their intelligence knows how to go to their library, so to speak, and pull stuff out that speaks to the intelligence. It's very difficult for any one person to remember all the things that they've been taught in their lifetimes. But if they know that they have books, they have notes that they've taken and so on that they can refer to, that's an intelligent person. That's an educated person. An educated person knows how to go to the library. So everybody's with this page. So this prayer was recited by Lord Jigden Sumgun, who is the founder of this Drikung Kagyu lineage that we are part of 800 years ago. And here he's paying homage to all the glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas. So the root lamas are those who are so fundamentally basic to you. It may be someone that you've met. It may be a lama that you've met who you consider to be your root, but it also could be Buddha Shakyamuni. It could also be Lord Jigden Sumgun. It could also be Padmasambhava. And so if we're thinking in terms that our Lama who we've received these teachings from, the one that we look at and so on like that, is a emanation of the Buddha. So it's all part of that same lineage. So we look at the root Lama, the fundamental root Lama, then would be Shakyamuni Buddha. So the kind root and lineage lamas. So the lineage lamas would be those who have come, the human beings who have come, who have continued the teachings and so on. And we're reading their books, we're reciting their prayers, and we're talking to them. They are presenting to us the empowerments and these different things in person. So this divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions. So we just talked about the 10 directions, so I hope everybody can remember that. And but the divine assembly of yidams, the yidams are what we call the meditational deities, the tutelary deities. And it's through our commitment to these deities, these meditational deities, like for instance, Green Tara, for instance, Shenreze, for instance, Medicine Buddha, Manjushri, these Sambhogaya deities that are meditational deities, and they become our meditational teachers. Our human teachers are teaching us how to approach them. But then when we have our meditations, when we do these practices and we're engaging in this intellectual investigation of the mandala, then these yidams become the lens through which we are experiencing the loving kindness, the compassion, the joy, and the equanimity. In other words, the bodhicitta, the holy enlightened mind of these deities, of these yidams. They're our teachers, our tutelary deities. They're like our mentors. Who better to learn about being a Buddha than the Buddhas? You know, it's great to be able to have our teachers, our human teachers, but they are not Buddhas at this time. We may, visualize them. We may want to think of them when they're on the throne as being like that, and we should, but still they have their humanness about them. So they're leading us to this meditational experience. And so to the yidams. So the yidams and the assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, and Yoginis. So these are the families of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, these meditational deities. So in past 101 sessions, we've talked about the mandalas, and we've talked about that there's male deities, and the male deities have their consorts, they're female. So the female has her consort, the male, and so on. And then they have what we might call their spiritual sons and daughters, the bodhisattvas. So they're working together as a family to be able to bring to us awareness, to be able to bring to us, who it is that we are, because all of this is within ourselves. So we need to learn these mandalas by creating our own mandala and aligning it with the mandala of these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So the deity yoga is the way in which we do that. So the deity are these deities, and the yoga is the union with these. And the dakinis are like we call skyfarers. And these are the holy beings that are like, kind of coming to us at critical times where suddenly, somebody appears, or you hear something, or maybe you read something that just really speaks to you and helps you to see a path, a clear path when you might be stuck someplace. So it's kind of like, it's not magic, but you might think initially, you might think, well, wow, just magically this person appeared. Or, it might come from a 5-year-old kid. A 5-year-old kid might say something that just resonates with something that's happening in your life and gives you some clarity. Or maybe it's an old person, or maybe it's not a person at all. Maybe it's, like I said, it's something that you've read or something. So the dakinis are these like angels that appear to us, and we recognize them. The important thing is that we recognize them. All this space is filled with all this spirituality, all within ourselves, but it's a matter of being able to recognize these elements within ourselves. So the more that we engage in this, the more that we are able to see the characteristics of these different holy beings, and we can recognize them. So we're paying homage to this. Please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana and the innate word of virtue. So the 3 times, I think everybody should know by now that it is the past, the present, and the future. And sometimes there'll be a 4th time that's indicated, and that would be indeterminate time. Indeterminate time, that it's not relative to past, present, and future. It is indeterminate. It is time that is timeless. So in some of our practices and some of the experiences that we have may be timeless, may be indeterminate. All sentient beings in samsara and nirvana. So there is the mind of samsara, the mind of suffering. And then there's the mind of nirvana, the mind of liberation. However, there are 2 sides of the same hand. It is part of being a human being. It is part of our dualistic nature of being a human being. So we're either thinking, we're experiencing with our mind of samsara, of suffering, or we have liberated from that temporarily. And we're thinking, we're behaving with our mind of nirvana, of liberation, of the holy enlightened mind, of bodhicitta. But it's temporary, it's human, and it can slip back. It can slip back into suffering, and the suffering can give way to that temporary enlightenment. And then so it's our dualistic nature, and we're learning to control that. That's what we're trying to do, is to control our mind, to control these vicissitudes. And we really are not fully successful in this until we can liberate ourselves from our body, until we pass from being a human being into being a bodhisattva, into being a Buddha, into being a holy enlightened being ourselves that is completely perfected, completely stable, and so on. So we're working to do that. And again, in the Vajrayana, in this particular lineage that we talk about, this is the mode in which we can do that. We learn the techniques to do that, the wisdom to be able to do that. So the innate word of virtue. So this innate word of virtue is this true nature, that we have this indestructible goodness that is within us all. All sentient beings have this goodness. All beings do not want to harm other beings, in their essence. But as corruption occurs, circumstances occur, causes and conditions arise, and so on, that we do negative things, sometimes voluntarily and sometimes involuntary. And the way in which we deal with those things is based on our innate root of virtue. So we need to be able to recognize our virtue and the non-virtues and so on. So it's a process to be able to do that. So that these may not result in the 8 worldly concerns. So the 8 worldly concerns we may not have talked about before, but we're going to talk about right now so that you can begin to become familiar with these. These 8 worldly concerns are things that human beings spend all their time thinking about. And when I talk about all human beings, I'm talking about ordinary human beings who have not awakened any degree of spirituality. Even with awakening their spirituality, they still may fall back into these patterns of these 8 worldly concerns. So what are the 8 worldly concerns? First is gain and loss. That we're thinking about how much we have to gain, how much we have gained, how much more we want to gain, and then the losses, what it is that we may lose from what we've gained, or what suffering has occurred to us because of the losses that we've had. So this opposite, this duality of gain and loss is something that we think about all the time. And it gets stronger and stronger the older we get, when we have to go out and we have to earn a living, we have to support a family, we have to buy all the things and furnish all the, all the things that we need for our families and so on. So we're always thinking about how much money you got to make, the possessions that you have, and what your risk is, what you're going to lose it when you get older, and you're not working anymore. Now you're dependent upon whatever money you've been able to save and so on. So you're really, you're thinking about that. And, how much more am I willing to risk if I invest my money or my resources, and what's my risk tolerance? How much can I lose, and so on? So we think so much about that, and it gets deeper and deeper. Then the next of our 8 worldly concerns is praise and blame. Praise and blame. How much do we think about, either in our families or among our friends or in our schools or in our work or whatever, that we're thinking about the praise that we may get from our co-workers, from our friends, and so on like that, for the good things that we do, for the virtue that we do, or the accomplishments that we make, or depending on whatever the system that I'm involved in, they may think that my bad deeds are worthy of praise because I'm in an unwholesome situation of people who think that negativity is a good thing, that harm is a good thing. And you may receive praise for that. But how much do we think about that? How much are we motivated by the praise that we might get by others? And how much does it puff ourselves up? Oh, I get all this praise, I must really be a good person, and so on. It gives me a great deal of satisfaction. On the other side of that is the blame. The blame when we lose things, or we're not doing what we are said that we can do, that maybe we take responsibility for bringing in new business into our work, into our business or something, and we bring in a new account and we get the praise for it, but then we might lose an account. And now people got to get laid off, and we can't do the improvements that we were thinking about doing, and so on. And we become blamed for that. Or maybe it's in our families. Maybe, we get married and it's wonderful. Everybody's happy. We have children. And then we decide that we want to get divorced. And now that they're playing the blame game. Oh, was it the husband? Was it the wife? Was it their job? Was it their, that they were, getting involved in things that maybe they shouldn't have gotten involved in, and so on. And now everybody's trying to blame them, and trying to blame yourself and blame other people because you don't want to take responsibility for it yourself. So how much are we involved with praise and blame? How much are we thinking about that? So we need to be aware of this, because we need to overcome these things. This is our dualistic nature. If we know our dualistic nature, now we can begin to do the work to be able to overcome our dualism. So the next of our 8 worldly concerns is our fame and disgrace. Fame and disgrace. So fame, who are our heroes? And do we share heroes? Are our heroes the basketball players, are the politicians, are the very wealthy people who have billions and billions and billions of dollars? Are these our heroes? Are these the people, these famous peoples that we look up to and say, oh, I wish I could be like them? They become our models, that we want to become like them, and how wonderful they are and how much enjoyment they bring to our lives in so many different ways, and we share them with so many other people. This fame is infectious and contagious, and we just want to be with them. We tell people, oh, I saw so-and-so, I have their signature. I got their signature on a baseball or something like that. And how wonderful. I touched them. 5 years ago, I met somebody who was my guitar hero, and wow, I met them and how wonderful it was. I'm still talking about it like it was yesterday because I get notoriety. People respect me because I met this great guitar player 5 years ago or something like that. My personality, my identity is hung on this fame, this famous person that I met. So our ego attaches to all these different things, you see. But then sometimes these famous people then fall into disgrace. We find out that they have done terrible things. They haven't paid their taxes. They've stolen money. They've hurt people. They've caused sexual misdeeds. You know, all kinds of different things that they may have done. So these famous beings now fall into this disgrace. And maybe this happens to us, that we may have some degree of fame among our circle of friends, but then we do something that's really deceitful or something, and now all of a sudden we become a disgrace to our friends. So it can be, you know, where we're looking at these other famous people, but it can be us. And then we can fall into these patterns of suffering. And we're thinking about this all the time, and think about how that we become paralyzed and crippled by our disgrace. And maybe, you know, we do something, we got to go to jail or we got to go to court or whatever it is. And maybe it's our divorce. There's so many different things. So how much time do we spend thinking about this? And how much time do we have to devote to this to be able to bring it up? When I was talking about challenging, and I was talking about, you know, bringing up these things that we suppress, you know, from the actions of our enlightened activities, maybe it's these kinds of things that we need to be able to work on through those enlightened activities. So fame and disgrace. So then the last pair of these things, the 8 worldly concerns, is pleasure and pain. How much time do we think about our pleasure? How much time do we think about our love relationships, our bodily pleasures that we're thinking about that, or the pleasures of the house that we live in, or the pleasures of the clothing that we wear and the places that we go, the things that we do, the things that are, you know, readily identifiable with who we are, these pleasures, and, you know, who our spouses are, and the physical pleasures that we have. You know, how much do we think about those? And when we fall in love, but, you know, when we're young and even when we're old, you know, that, you know, we can act like a teenager when we're in our 60s and 70s or 80s. You know, you meet somebody and my God, you know, all those pleasure, you know, endorphins or whatever they're called, rush up, you know, the same as when you were a teenager and so on. And, you know, so it becomes overpowering. It becomes obsessive with ourselves, you know, this kind of pleasure. And like I said, with the clothes or whatever it is. But then all these things invariably turn into pain. You know, the loves that we have, you know, we become jealous of, you know, because our spouse now, whether we're a teenager or we're somebody who's in our middle-aged years or our senior years, that, you know, who are you talking to? What kind of conversation you have? You look like you were whispering. Were you talking about me? You know, and we play all these mental games with ourselves because we don't want to lose that pleasure, where we're so attached to that pleasure, and that pleasure turns into pain. Or maybe the pleasure that we have, that my car that I wanted to have so much and I worked so hard for, and now it's 3 or 4 years old, and now it's gotten dinged up and it's lost its luster. There's newer cars that are out there and so on. So having this car now becomes painful to me, where before it became such pleasure to me. Or my house, you know, I got this house, but now I got to fix things in the house. I bought this old house, but now I got to replace the hot water heater, and I got to mow the lawn. I got to do all these things that I really didn't think about, that now I got to do. So all this pleasure now becomes pain to me. So how much time do we spend thinking about these 8 worldly concerns? So think about the things that you think about. When you sit down to meditate, if you carve out a half an hour of your morning time, let's say, or evening time, whatever it is, when you first sit down, what are the thoughts that are rushing up into your head? It's going to be some combination of these 8 things. And you're going to have to deal with these 8 things to be able to get to the peace of mind that you want this meditation practice to give to you. So it requires being able to how to organize this, how to be able to compartmentalize this, and how to go through a process to be able to understand these things. So this is what we're learning. We're learning the stages of meditation. So, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail about that. But here in this prayer, it calls out these 8 worldly concerns. So that's why I wanted to point them out to you. So now you know what they are, and you can be on the lookout for them. The next thing is the 4 causes of samsara. So the 4 causes of samsara, I'm going to go through this quickly, and I know it's gotten to be 9 o'clock, so I don't want to go late. But the 4 causes of samsara are not gathering the accumulations of wisdom and merit. If we don't accumulate wisdom and merit, then we're bound to be reborn or continue into our samsara, our ocean of suffering. The next is gathering non-virtues. If what we're gathering are the negativities, are the non-virtues of the things that we do, the pain that is causing other people, the pain that is causing ourselves, the suffering that it's causing, and so on. If we're accumulating that, becomes a cause for remaining in samsara. The next one, the third one, is creating obstacles to others' creation of virtue. If we're getting in the way of other beings who are trying to create their virtue, create their transcendence of their suffering, and we're causing obstacle to them, well, that keeps us in samsara, because you're creating more pain for other beings and so on. And then the 4th thing is not dedicating virtue. That when we do things, when we do good things, that we should dedicate that for the enlightenment of other beings, for the happiness of other beings, for the freedom of other beings, and not selfishly hold it to ourselves. In other words, we're not ego building. We are releasing our ego by giving whatever virtues that we have been able to acquire, that we've been able to work for, that we're dedicating that to other beings. So those are important things. These are the 4 causes of samsara. So there's more things to talk about here, but we'll do that next time. So unless you have any other questions or comments, we'll say our dedication prayers for tonight.
I mean, I have a question.
Okay.
You said that, oops, where'd it go?
Did you
Like,
just?
no, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking of a way to
I
assemble.
thought you had a digital freeze frame there.
No. What's the difference in taking pleasure from something and being grateful for something? Because I find that I find a lot of pleasure in being grateful for the things that I have, but a lot of those things are like times I've spent with people or material possessions that I have.
Well, it's a question of being obsessive about it and being able to recognize when you're being obsessive about it. And does it give you freedom? Does that give you freedom, or does it give you some kind of temporary enjoyment that you keep clinging to and grasping for more of it? Or does it give you a sense of freedom within yourself, and can you sit alone and be satisfied? Does it give you that? Or are you just being obsessing about it, and your identity, your ego just gets hung on that gratefulness that you have? It's good to be grateful, no question about it, but we should be able to let it go. We should be able to release it and not hold on to it, to dedicate it to other beings. So that might sound like a very simplistic answer, but really that is the answer. It's letting go. What we're trying to do is to be free of contaminations, of compulsiveness, of attachments, of aversions, and so on, and just be peaceful and quiet and serene and happy. That's what we're trying to get to.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so why don't we recite this prayer out loud together, everybody, this dedication prayer. So glorious, holy, venerable, precious kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, not result, and the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness and compassion and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If anybody has any questions, I'll hang out here for a couple minutes. And
Thanks, Lance.
you're welcome. Thank you, Ryan. Thank everybody for coming.
Thank
Hope
you.
to see you again next week.
Thank you, Lance. This was a wonderful teaching. Thank you.
You're welcome, Zara. Thank you very much. Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Tommy. Is B still with us, or does she?
No, after the practice, she conked out. So
Okay. All right.
I'll fill her in. I took notes. So
All right. Viviana, thank you very much for doing the recording.
Yeah, I tripped on my wire though. That's why I like left and then came back. So can you send me the one that you recorded? Because it'll be continuous as opposed to like.
Well, you only missed a couple minutes of the opening prayer, so you just use the one that you've got.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
All right. See y'all next time.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night, Tom. Good job. Good night, bro.
Good night.
Okay.